My name is Alex. I've been dating Emily since our school days, and it's been 5 years now. My feelings for her have grown stronger every day, and I want to spend the rest of my life with her. Today, I came to greet you as my future in-laws. Thank you for taking the time to see me. This was when I went to Emily's parents' house to ask for their blessing. I tried to remain calm and said this. Perhaps because of my greeting, Emily's mother gave me a warm smile and said, "Oh, what a pleasant young man. Thank you for taking the time to come. Please, make yourself at home." I was very happy to receive such kind words from her. Thank you. But we won't stay long. As I said this to Emily's mother, Emily's father glared at me. We don't need him to stay long. Hey, Jenny, don't be so welcoming. He said this to Emily's mother. The atmosphere instantly became tense. Emily, her mother, and I all looked down and fell silent. After a moment, Emily's mother spoke again. Victor is right, we haven't asked about his profession yet. We need to make sure you're suitable for the Johnson family. Just because Emily likes you doesn't mean anyone can marry into our family. Emily retorted against her mother's statement. What is that supposed to mean? I've always said I hate that kind of talk. I have the right to marry the person I love. And I don't want you or Dad interfering. I didn't even want to come here in the first place. Her father then shouted. Don't be so cheeky. Listen, Emily, you don't understand the weight of being a Johnson. No matter how much you talk about freedom, the fact remains that whoever you marry will become part of our family. You have no right to bring disgrace to us. Didn't you learn not to cause trouble for others in school? The situation was already chaotic, I thought. Emily was tearing up. I couldn't bear to see my future wife so upset, and I started to panic a little. I began explaining my job to reassure her parents. Mr. Johnson, Mrs. Johnson, I'm sorry for causing any concern. I run an IT company. Besides myself, I have 3 employees, but... Before I could finish, Emily's father interrupted me. What? You call yourself a CEO with just 3 employees? Pathetic. I stopped speaking, cut off by his words. Forget about the wedding and just leave. You're wasting our time. He continued. Emily shouted. That's awful, Dad. How can you say such things? I've had enough. I've known for a long time that talking to you is pointless. I'm at my limit. I'll leave this house and cut ties with you. After saying that, she sat down and covered her face and started crying. I felt terrible for making Emily so sad. However, Mrs. Johnson stepped in, saying, Hey, Victor. There's no need to talk like that while Alex is speaking. I'm sorry, Alex. My husband can be quite harsh. Her supportive words gave me a glimmer of hope, but convincing her stubborn father seemed incredibly difficult. Quiet. Just leave. I run a company with 100 employees. How dare you call yourself a CEO in front of me? You're a shallow and extremely rude person. I can tell you're not suitable for the Johnson family. Get out. Emily's father glared at me as he said this. As I stood there, unsure what to do, he stood up and threatened me. So I decided it was best to leave before things got worse and Emily got more upset. Well then, I'll take my leave for today. I'll come back soon to greet you properly. I said this and heading for the door. A complete defeat. However, the next day, something unexpected happened. My name is Alex Smith, 27 years old. I've been dating Emily Johnson, whom I met in college, for 5 years, and I'm considering marriage. Emily is bright, friendly, and always natural, a wonderful woman. I've been bragging a bit about my girlfriend, but when I started thinking about marriage, Emily started worrying about her family. Emily's father is the CEO of a small to medium-sized company. He's an old-fashioned, arrogant man who always believes he's the most important, both at work and at home, as Emily describes him. Emily also has an older sister who graduated from a prestigious university in the city and worked at a big company before marrying an elite businessman last year. Emily told me their wedding was a luxurious party on a cruise ship with many celebrities attending. Alex, do you want to attend my sister's wedding party? At the time, when Emily asked me if I wanted to attend her sister's wedding party, I politely declined since I wasn't her husband yet. Despite her family's glamorous lifestyle, Emily herself is quite down to earth. She even said, "I don't see the point of having a wedding party on a luxury cruise ship. I'd prefer a simple wedding." Our dates were no exception. She preferred casual dining like family restaurants or ramen shops over fancy places. I feel more comfortable at a family restaurant or a ramen shop than at a fancy restaurant. For Christmas dinner, she requested delivery from a famous chain restaurant. Perhaps this is her way of rebelling against her lavish upbringing. Well, it doesn't matter to me whether Emily is from a wealthy family or not. My feelings of love for her remain the same either way. As spring came, our anniversary approached. True to form, Emily didn't want to spend much money, but I suggested, let's try some fancy Italian food for a change. And reserved a table at an Italian restaurant with a sea view for our anniversary dinner. As we finished our meal, I pulled a small box from my pocket. "Emily, thank you for being with me all this time. Will you marry me?" I took out a ring from the small box. Emily's face lit up with joy. "This is an engagement ring? It's beautiful." "Thank you, Alex." She said this with tears in her eyes and immediately slipped the ring onto her left ring finger, gazing at it dreamily. "Is the size okay?" "I chose a design based on your hints, but I was worried if you'd like it." When I asked this, Emily replied, "Anything you give me makes me happy, Alex. I'd be thrilled even with a ring made of wire." "Wire might be a bit much, but thank you for saying that." When I said this, Emily responded, "Really, anything from you makes me happy. Just being with you is enough for me." I felt incredibly happy, realizing again that we were a truly loving couple. "By the way, did I get your answer to my proposal?" Caught up in her excitement over the ring, I realized I hadn't heard her reply. "Answer to your proposal?" Emily looked puzzled. "Yes. I'd like to hear your answer properly." When I said this, Emily replied, "I'd love to get married, but..." Her mood suddenly dropped despite just having enjoyed the ring. Does that mean there's a chance we can't get married?" I felt my mood drop too, and worried by her response. "It's just my parents." Emily said this and looked down in silence. "Emily, I'll convince your parents. I'll do my best because I want to be with you." I held Emily's hand. She lifted the corners of her mouth slightly and said, "Thank you." By the time I could visit her parents, a month had passed since my proposal. Apparently, Emily had a hard time bringing it up to her parents, which caused the delay. As expected, when Emily told her parents, "Dad, Mom, I have someone I want to marry, and I'd like you to meet him," her father reportedly said, "So you think he's worthy of meeting me? He must be quite the man." Her mother added, "We won't tolerate anything that brings shame to our family." Hearing this from Emily, I thought to myself that this would be tough, but I resolved to marry into such a well-bred family. 2 years ago, I started my own company. In short, I'm the CEO. But it's a small company with just 4 friends, so it doesn't have the usual corporate hierarchy. My parents are a pain. "Maybe we should just elope," Emily suggested. "Don't joke about that. We can't do that. I'll do my best to win your parents over. It'll be fine." I said this to Emily to reassure her and also to bolster my own confidence. On the day I went to meet her parents, I decided that wearing a suit would be too formal. So I wore a collarless casual jacket over a light blue shirt with chinos. Standing in front of the apartment door with the Johnson nameplate in an upscale part of town, I took a deep breath. "All right." I rang the doorbell. Since Emily still lived with her parents, my mission was to go into the Johnson house alone. "Yes?" I heard Emily's voice as she opened the door for me. "Come in." I put on the slippers Emily had prepared for me and nervously followed her into the living room. An older man was sitting on the living room sofa with his arms and legs crossed. He was probably Emily's father. In the kitchen, an older woman was making tea. I assumed she was Emily's mother. "Alex, this is my father and mother." "Dad, Mom, this is Alex." Emily looked uneasy and introduced me to her parents. "My name is Alex. I've been dating Emily since our school days, and it's been 5 years now. My feelings for her have grown stronger every day. And I want to spend the rest of my life with her. Today, I came to greet you as my future in-laws. Thank you for taking the time to see me. I was nervous, but I tried to remain calm as I spoke. I knew my greeting was long and formal, but given that they likely didn't have a good impression of me, I thought it best to convey my intentions clearly. Perhaps because of my greeting, Emily's mother softened her stern expression and said, "Oh, what a pleasant young man. Thank you for taking the time to come. Please, make yourself at home." I was very happy to receive such kind words from her. "Thank you. But I won't stay long." As I said this, Emily's father glared at me. "We don't need him to stay long." "Hey, Jenny, don't be so welcoming." He said this to Emily's mother. The atmosphere instantly became tense. Emily, her mother, and I all looked down and fell silent. After a moment, Emily's mother spoke again. "Victor is right, we haven't asked about your profession yet. We need to make sure you're suitable for the Johnson family. Just because Emily likes you doesn't mean anyone can marry into our family." Emily retorted against her mother's statement. "What is that supposed to mean? I've always said I hate that kind of talk. I have the right to marry the person I love. And I don't want mom or dad interfering. I didn't even want to come here in the first place." Emily's father then shouted, "Don't be so cheeky. Listen, Emily, you don't understand the weight of being a Johnson. No matter how much you talk about freedom, the fact remains that whoever you marry will become part of our family. You have no right to bring disgrace to us. Didn't you learn not to cause trouble for others in school?" The situation was already chaotic, I thought. Emily was tearing up. I couldn't bear to see my future wife so upset, and I started to panic a little. I began explaining my job to reassure her parents. "Mr. Johnson, Mrs. Johnson, I'm sorry for causing any concern. I run an IT company. Besides myself, I have 3 employees, but..." Before I could finish, Emily's father interrupted me. "What? You call yourself a CEO with just 3 employees? Pathetic." I stopped speaking, cut off by his words. "Forget about the wedding and just leave. You're wasting our time." He continued. Emily shouted, "That's awful, Dad. How can you say such things? I've had enough. I've known for a long time that talking to you is pointless. I'm at my limit. I'll leave this house and cut ties with you." After saying that, she sat down and covered her face and started crying. I felt terrible for making Emily so sad. However, Mrs. Johnson stepped in, saying, "Hey, Victor. There's no need to talk like that while Alex is speaking." "I'm sorry, Alex. My husband can be quite harsh." Her supportive words gave me a glimmer of hope, but convincing Emily's stubborn father seemed incredibly difficult. "Quiet. Just leave. I run a company with 100 employees. How dare you call yourself a CEO in front of me? You're a shallow and extremely rude person. I can tell you're not suitable for the Johnson family. Get out." Mr. Johnson glared at me as he said this. As I stood there, unsure what to do, he stood up and threatened me. So I decided it was best to leave before things got worse and Emily got more upset. "Well then, I'll take my leave for today. I'll come back soon to greet you properly." I headed towards the entrance. I was deeply concerned about Emily, but she said to her father, "For now, I'm going with Alex. I'll pack my things and leave later." As she tried to leave with me. "Calm down, Emily. I'm on your side. Let's talk this through with your dad." Emily's mother persuaded her. I also thought that if Emily left with me now, it would only provoke her father further, so I said, "I'll do my best to win your parents' approval. So please stay with them today." Persuaded by both her mother and me, Emily reluctantly agreed, and I left alone. I knew getting their approval wouldn't be easy, but I couldn't help but feel disheartened. That evening, I exchanged a few messages with Emily. She wrote, "I'm sorry for making you feel bad even though you came all this way today," and I replied, "No, I'm sorry. I'll do my best to get their approval for our marriage." Although she read the message, she didn't reply after that. I worried and thought negatively, wondering, what if her parents convinced Emily to break up with me after that? But I also tried to stay positive, thinking, her mother was more supportive than I expected, and maybe she'll help sway her father's opinion. I hated the idea of not being able to be with the one I loved because of family opposition. It wasn't just stubbornness, I truly wanted to continue loving Emily as my lifelong partner. I couldn't sleep much that night, and I went to work with rubbing my sleepy eyes the next morning. I was planning to visit Harris Corporation this morning, but our new client can only meet this morning, so I'm in a bind. David, one of our employees and a college friend, said this as he arrived at the office before me. Got it. I don't have anything urgent this morning, so I can go to one of them for you. When I offered, David said, thanks, I'd appreciate that. I need to handle the new client since I initiated the contact. Can you take care of Harris Corporation? We typically divided tasks like this but cooperated flexibly depending on the situation. Harris Corporation, an old parts manufacturer, had reached out about upgrading their system about 6 months ago. And we had been providing IT services for the past 5 months. We had planned to visit them for a maintenance review this week, but due to our busy schedule, David hoped to handle it today. After getting the details from David, I called Harris Corporation and scheduled an appointment. I promised to visit at 11:30 a.m., gathered the necessary materials, and left the office. Driving was more convenient, so I headed to their company by car, parked in a nearby coin-operated parking lot, and walked from there. I was feeling sluggish from last night's lack of sleep, but I couldn't let that affect me. I gathered my energy and walked around to the entrance from the back of the company. Alright, this is the place, I muttered to myself as the automatic doors opened. What I saw next was shocking. Ha! I involuntarily exclaimed. Inside the entrance stood a line of men in suits, as if they had been waiting for me. I was stunned and wondered, what are they going to do to me? Unsure whether to run, I stood frozen. One of the men stepped forward and said loudly, "We deeply apologize," followed by all the men bowing deeply in unison. Wait, what? I was completely bewildered, but I thought maybe something had happened to harm our company. I wondered if David had missed something in the handover or if it was something even he didn't know about. Is there some trouble with my company? I'm Alex from Truth Corporation. Usually, David handles this account, but today I'm. As I introduced myself and handed my business card to the man who spoke, he replied, "Thank you. I'm Henry, the executive director of this company. This isn't about a company issue but a personal matter. We heard that our president was very rude to you recently. After discussing it with several executives, we decided to apologize. We were going to visit you, but when we heard you were coming today, we decided to greet and apologize to you here." Your president was rude to me? I have no recollection of that. I was completely bewildered. Then I saw a man hurriedly running from the back of the company towards me. As soon as he reached me, he deeply apologized. "I'm so sorry. Please, don't cancel our contract." When he raised his head, I recognized him instantly. "Wait. Mr. Johnson," I exclaimed in shock. There was no mistaking it, as I had just met him yesterday. The man was none other than Emily's father. Mr. Johnson's company is Harris Corporation. I didn't realize because the company name wasn't Johnson. "I'm shocked," I said in a daze. Mr. Johnson looked very different from his stern demeanor yesterday, and said with a tearful expression, "My subordinates insisted on apologizing to you. I never imagined you'd come here yourself. You're here to cancel our contract, right? Please, don't do that. I'll even approve your marriage to Emily. Please, I beg you." Mr. Johnson deeply begged me again. I hurriedly said, "Please calm down, Mr. Johnson." Then I explained, "I'm not here to cancel our contract. I'm just here to handle maintenance and have a discussion in place of David. I had no intention of ending our partnership." Mr. Johnson, looking relieved, replied, "Really? If we had to switch systems now, the costs would be enormous. Our company is already struggling. And that would push us into bankruptcy." I was astonished by this coincidence. I wasn't completely uninformed about this client, as David had given me some details. Harris Corporation was founded 20 years ago by President Harris. With an older workforce, they had continued using analog systems until recently. However, unable to keep up with the times, they hired an external consulting firm, which recommended a complete system overhaul for better management. That's when Henry reached out to our company. Then David took the initial call and became their point of contact. Our IT management system has been growing in demand domestically, with several major companies adopting it. Despite being run by just 4 people, our company generates higher annual revenue than many older mid-sized firms, consistently turning a profit and growing steadily. We've been getting more media coverage, and while I'm not personally famous because we have another employee handling PR, our company has been gaining recognition. Wait, so the president here isn't Mr. Harris? When I asked that question, Mr. Johnson replied, "No, Mr. Harris became chairman, and I was appointed president 10 years ago. My father knew Mr. Harris, so I got the job through connections. I didn't really understand the business at first. Henry has been supporting me, but we've faced many challenges. However, since implementing your system, our situation has dramatically improved. You're a savior. I understood better now." Emily had only told me her father was a company president. I had no idea of the details. I had assumed her family was wealthy, but their business was struggling. "How come you didn't recognize me as the president of your client's company yesterday, but you do today?" I asked another question. Mr. Johnson replied, "After you left, Emily was furious and told me, Alex's company may be small, but it's amazing. You wouldn't know because you're stuck in the old ways. His company is famous in the industry and makes much more money than yours." At first, I dismissed it, but Emily kept insisting. I asked her the name of your company and was shocked to realize it was one of our key partners. He continued, "Last night, I considered calling to apologize immediately, but I wasn't sure how it would look to change my stance so quickly. This morning, I discussed it with Henry, who said, 'Victor, what have you done? Our company's survival is at stake. We need to apologize right away.' I was hesitant, but Henry and the other executives prepared to apologize. Then you called to say you were visiting in 2 hours, and I thought it was over. I assumed you were coming to terminate the contract." Hearing this, I understood the situation. However, I still had doubts. Was Mr. Johnson apologizing only to save his company? Or did he genuinely care about Emily's happiness and his family's well-being? If he was allowing the marriage just to save his business, he was using his daughter for personal gain. "Mr. Johnson, what do Emily and Mrs. Johnson think about this?" I asked. He replied, "They think it's too convenient to suddenly change my stance for the company's sake. My wife hasn't spoken to me since last night. And Emily packed her things and left this morning." I was shocked. Emily left? Where did she go? I anxiously checked my phone. I hoped for a message or call from Emily. But there was nothing. I felt uneasy. Well, I didn't plan to cancel the contract, so let's proceed with the scheduled maintenance and discussion. "Henry, has there been any trouble with our system?" I wanted to finish quickly and check on Emily. "No, everything's fine. Any minor issues have been resolved through your technical support center," Henry answered. "All right, I'll just do a quick inspection inside. Can you accompany me?" I said, and Henry showed me around the company. There were no issues, so I completed my task. "Thank you, I'll take my leave now." Leaving Mr. Johnson in his flustered state, I got into my car and hurried home. I took out my keys and unlocked the door. There was a pair of women's shoes in the entryway. I sighed in relief. "Alex, aren't you supposed to be at work?" "It's still noon." Emily appeared from inside. She looked a bit shy and said, "I'm sorry. I left home in a huff and didn't know where else to go, so I thought I'd stay with you for a while. I'll find an apartment soon. Can I stay here for now?" I laughed and said, "What are you talking about? We're getting married, right? Why would my wife need to find an apartment? You can stay here as long as you want." When I said that, Emily started crying as if she had been holding her tears back. As I comforted Emily, I told her about the unexpected encounter at her father's company and how he had apologized to me while kneeling. I also shared what Mr. Johnson had said. Emily, looking sad, said, "Dad, after I told him about your company, his face turned pale. If he felt bad, he should have apologized right away instead of leaving it to Henry. It's so pathetic." I tried to console her, saying, "But he did apologize as soon as he knew I was coming." However, Emily replied, "He's only doing it for himself. He apologized because it would be bad for the company, not because he cares about us." I couldn't disagree with her, so I remained silent. But having Emily staying at my place indefinitely without resolving things wasn't a good situation either. I wanted to marry Emily with everyone's blessing, not by running away. For now, I felt relieved knowing Emily was safe, so I went back to work in the afternoon. I told David about the coincidence of the client being Emily's father and the apology incident. David was shocked, saying, "Wow, that's crazy. But since Emily's father wants to use our system for his company, we can probably keep the upper hand in this relationship." I agreed that there shouldn't be any issues with the business. The real problem was how to handle the family situation. A few days passed. While staying at my place, Emily continued going to work. One evening, when I returned home, I noticed a luxury car parked in the visitor parking lot of my apartment complex. When I took the elevator to my floor, I saw a couple standing in front of my door. As I approached them cautiously, the woman bowed to me, and I realized it was Emily's sister, Melissa. "Oh. It's been a while." "Hi, Melissa." I had met Melissa a few times before. However, I had never met the man standing next to her. "Hello. Nice to meet you. I'm Tom, Melissa's husband." I had a hunch, and it turned out to be true. This man was Melissa's husband. He was wearing a stylish suit made from what looked like high-quality fabric. I guessed that the luxury car in the underground parking lot belonged to Tom. "Sorry for the sudden visit. I heard from Mom that Emily had argued with Dad and left home, so I was worried. I didn't want to trouble you, Alex," Melissa explained. Thinking it wasn't right to keep them standing at the door, I invited them inside. Emily was already home from work. Melissa and Tom hadn't contacted Emily beforehand, fearing she'd refuse to see them, so she was surprised by their unannounced visit. Melissa had been to my apartment with Emily before, so she remembered the place. Since they were here, we ordered takeout and had dinner together. During the meal, some surprising truths came to light. Although Dad acts all high and mighty, our family was quite poor until I got a job. I went to college on a scholarship, Melissa revealed. I had assumed Emily's family was wealthy, so I was shocked. "I thought your family was rich," I said. Emily replied, "I never told you that, Alex." She was right, I had just assumed it because her father was a president and her sister was married to a wealthy man. And yet, he talks about suitable marriage partners for the Johnson family. It's ridiculous. My parents are financially stable now thanks to Tom and me," Melissa added, making another startling statement. "Really?" I was surprised again. After graduating from college and landing a job at an elite company, Melissa had started contributing financially to her parents' household, significantly improving their situation. On top of that, marrying Tom, who also worked for an elite company, made them a high-earning power couple. We decided not to have children, so we use our extra money to support our parents. But Dad's been getting carried away with it. Maybe we should stop helping him," Melissa said. Listening to all this, I started feeling a bit sorry for Mr. Johnson. He was given the company through a connection but couldn't manage it well, and lives a life of pretense. Even his daughter and wife had grown exasperated with him. Talking with my sister-in-law and her husband gave me clarity on how to resolve this situation. 6 months later, Emily and I submitted our marriage registration at the City Hall, officially becoming husband and wife. We moved out of our old apartment and into a more convenient one together. We are happily living our married life in our new home. Emily's parents live on the same floor in the same building. I rented a unit under my name for them. Despite initially planning not to have children, Melissa is now pregnant. Emily's parents moved out of their old apartment after I bought a new one for them. I now earn more than my sister-in-law and her husband, and we've had many discussions and completely reconciled with Emily's parents. Emily's father realized he had been overconfident after Melissa and Tom stopped their financial support. With our company's system in place, Mr. Johnson's business began to recover, and he started working earnestly and became kinder to his family. I provided business advice and even some financial support to help his company succeed. Mr. Johnson was grateful and genuinely regretted his initial intimidating behavior towards me. Mrs. Johnson, who had been riding on the coattails of her husband's behavior, also had a change of heart. Both of them now see me not as an unsuitable fiancé but as a savior who helped the Johnson family. We've put the past behind us and are now a close-knit family. Technically, Emily and I are well off enough to be considered wealthy, but Emily still wants to eat chain restaurants' food for Christmas this year. We'll have a modest home party with takeout and some champagne from the supermarket. As long as we're together, we're happy no matter what we do.